truth be told, the shipping in this show, when it comes to Star and Mako, is infamous, and I understand where people are coming from, judging of how it ruined the credibility of what this show has built up, but at the same time, I had a difficult time getting into the show, mainly the fact that my investment towards other shows, mainly from Disney Channel, glued to me a lot more compared to Star vs. the Forces of Evil, because even by watching this show when it came to the first season and mostly of the second season, nearly 4 years ago, I really had a difficult time finding the shipping as an issue, considering that watching the first season, I always had the mindset of Star and Mako being a problem towards the end, but at the same time, I'm not gonna be like everyone else if I was really against the whole direction when it came to the final episode. The last time I talked about Star vs. the Forces of Evil was the Halloween episode from 2023, and ever since then, I really didn't have much of an interest into talking about this show, mainly the fact that there were other reviews I've been doing, and thinking about this show when it came to the shipping. Honestly, if I did talk about the shipping involving Mako and Star, then I'm pretty sure that people, mainly the haters, would not agree with me when it comes to my opinions. Which is why I've decided to review this episode, Bon the Birthday Clown. Well, Mako has a choice on joining Star in order to bring Bon back to life by doing a very complicated spell, but he also has an option to go with Jackie to the prom, which later on she decides to go on a date with him, which he accepts. Granted, I'm only a few episodes away from getting into this episode when it comes to my binge watch of this show, but at the same time, I still watch the episodes that centered around Mako and Jackie, and this built up to those episodes. So in all honesty, getting into this episode right away isn't really an issue, judging of how that every time I think about this episode in particular, especially watching clips of Mako and Jackie together, despite the fact that the creators of the show planned on making Star and Mako a couple from the very beginning, I'm really getting the impression that when you have this idea that you want to put it in full effect, it's gonna end up like the Steven Universe situation. Well, Rebecca Sugar planned on making Rose Pink Diamond all along, and despite my opinions towards that not being the same as others, I still understand where people are coming from, and when it comes to this show, despite not watching seasons 3 and 4, especially since I'm still into season 2, I can instantly tell for a fact that they cared less about the shipping and more about the lore of what this show has built up. So, to get this out of the way, the biggest example of me reviewing this episode is the fact that Jackie, despite what ends up happening in season 3, if it didn't happen, she would have been the perfect girlfriend for Mako, mainly the fact that the build-up between the two really feels a lot more fleshed out compared to Mako's relationship with Star. Every time I think of Jackie in this episode, she's never put in the wrong. And considering that Star is mostly jealous of her, despite the fact that she has a soft side, for me personally, knowing of what ends up happening in the final episode, if they continue this notion of never having Star be with Mako, I'm pretty sure that the direction of the show would have been a lot more focused on the lore, judging of the criticisms of people giving towards this show. I did say I didn't have a problem with the shipping. However, if they took a different direction by not having Star being paired with Mako, then they would have instantly changed everyone else's perspectives towards this show if they're gonna focus more on the lore, because every time I think about Star and Jana trying to get Bonbon back from the dead, it doesn't feel as important as I expect it to be, because with the flashback that we've seen earlier in the episode, it really gave me the impression with Star and Jana just staying at the cemetery for the sake of adding some kind of one time. It's honestly difficult to see them as the main focus, especially since that the title is Bonbon the Birthday Clown. The thing is, whenever I think about shipping when it comes to these materials, I'm not supposed to think that. However, in this episode, there is shipping when it comes to Mako and Jackie, but at the same time, it's nowhere near as the same levels of problematic issues as Star and Mako. Because, truth be told, if they made Jackie a completely hateable character by making her completely rude and ruthless, then I'm pretty sure another issue will come into play of Mako going straight to Star, but I'm pretty sure it would still have the same issues. And every time I look at Jackie in this episode in particular, it really feels like she's the type of girl that is a lot more fleshed out, but in a way that you can instantly see that if she never dumped Mako in the following season, she would have had a purpose more when it comes to the plot, but it would also save the issues involving Mako and Star being together, all the while preventing that from happening. If there's one thing, at the very least, that this show has grew on me, is mainly Jackie. I'm just saying, like, if you at least attempt her to have some kind of development rather than her being with another lady, then I'm pretty sure that she would have had more of a factor to fix the issues of this show. Granted, it's her choice to be with someone else later on in the series, but at the same time, it's honestly difficult to see her as she was from this episode, and with her dumping Mako in season 3, truth be told, regardless if Mako is attempting to do things right with Jackie, if it's mainly the fact that he is like Star, then honestly, there's a reason onto why I don't always be on board with two people having the same things, with them being a couple is the solution to everything. In my opinion, when it comes to Mako's character in the show, I feel like that if he was a lot more normal while also being shy towards Jackie, while Star still causes issues towards him, which it's not really her fault. If I call her out when it comes to the stuff that she caused, I would have been a hypocrite on citing the other characters from a different world come to Earth, hanging out with a person that they're adjusting towards. It would probably make Mako's character really unsympathetic, considering that with him being shy towards Jackie would have been too predictable to the point that it wouldn't make him better when it comes to other characters who are shy towards girls. And truth be told, if he was the same personality when it comes to the traits of Jackie, then I'm sure that the writers will probably make this ship as the least interest compared to Star and Mako, which if we lived in that alternative timeline, then I'm sure people will probably not like Jackie, since she'll most likely be a tool rather than being a character of herself. And since Star is more charismatic than Jackie, I think it kind of shows onto why they did the direction of her and Marco being together while having Jackie being with another girl. I don't know about you, but I can't say if it's a good thing for anyone, because it would still lead to so many issues in the later seasons, but at the same time, it's more of an example onto why that the lore of this show just isn't really into my taste in comparison to the other lores that I've seen in other shows. So let's get into the only antagonist, Ludo, who I've seen multiple times in this show, especially a couple of episodes centering around him, and honestly, I'm supposed to find him humorous, but also intimidating when it came to him being disguised as Bonbon the birthday clown. But at the same time, judging of the fact that this show isn't even attempting to make these scenarios a lot more important, after knowing about what happens later on in the series, I really feel like that Ludo, along with the other villains, have been extremely wasted, to the point that they've become an afterthought, to the point that it's difficult to look at them as real threats, all the while seeing them as enjoyable characters. I always feel like that whenever the finale gets older, and with this episode being the oldest, it ages a lot more poorly and difficult to take the characters in full value, especially Ludo. Honestly, if I consider on seeing this character as a character that's supposed to be menacing, it would have at least meant something of what I would expect what he would do with the book later on, since that's the book that Star uses in order to perform tricks. But at the same time, it's way more difficult to look at what this show accomplished when it comes to episodes like this, when all you're going to be thinking about is the final episode. And as much as I didn't watch the final episode, what I heard about it, and when it comes to the criticisms, especially the ending, which I did saw, it's way more harder to look at that episode when it comes to first impressions, when the first impressions you're going to be getting is the fact that Star and Marco are together and both worlds have been collided in a collision. My point of view of this show, of not giving more reviews of it, is mainly on the fact that there were a lot of shows back then, and there was at least a few shows that I gave up watching, and truth be told, if it was really the shipping of this show, then I'm pretty sure I would have been like everyone else. But at the same time, even if the shipping is slightly an issue that I have with this episode, I really feel like that this episode, despite being aged poorly, is the most entertaining that I've seen when it comes to the episodes that I've talked about from this show. Reviewing this episode as one of the final 3 Valentine's Half Month 6 videos of this schedule, I really feel like that this was a lot more saved later than the other Valentine's Half Month 6 videos, mainly the fact that I actually find some enjoyment when it comes to the pairing of Jackie and Marco, and truth be told, it's gonna be another long while until I get back into the show, unless if I'm actually in the mood to binge watch this show, but at the same time, that is also gonna be mostly unlikely. This is mostly the best that I can do when it comes to getting back into the show, but at the same time, I really don't want to get into any situations when it comes to the criticisms of Marco and Star for the 50th or 100th time, because at this point, that criticism, despite being the major factor, is really getting old, and it's gonna take a while for me to come up with a different opinion, similar to my opinions towards Steven Universe, in order to see this show as A show I enjoy despite some people think otherwise. I give this episode a 7 out of 10.